How could one night of harmless fun at a club lead to the delivery of divorce papers on my kitchen table? What happens when your husband collects proof, your whole social circle turns against you, and you're forced to defend what you've always called just being friendly? Can anyone really be blamed for wanting a little attention, especially when the whole world is watching? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. The divorce papers were sitting on my kitchen table when I got home from work, right next to Issa's half-finished homework and yesterday's coffee mug. I stared at them for a full minute, my marketing coordinator brain trying to process what I was seeing. This couldn't be real. This couldn't be happening over one stupid night at a club. "Adrian," I called out, my voice echoing through our suburban townhouse. "What the hell is this?" He emerged from the living room, his financial analyst composure intact, but his eyes cold in a way I'd never seen before. At 36, my husband had always been the steady one, the rational one. But there was something different about him now, something that made my stomach clench. "I think it's pretty self-explanatory, Calantha," he said, using my full name instead of the usual Cal. That should have been my first warning. "This is insane," I said, waving the papers. "You're filing for divorce because I danced with some people at Jenny's birthday party. Are you serious right now?" Adrian's jaw tightened. "Danced? Is that what you're calling it?" I felt heat rise in my cheeks. "Yes, that's what I'm calling it because that's what it was. I was having fun with friends. Since when is that a crime?" "Since you told everyone at the club they could touch you," he said quietly. "Since you spent 2 hours grinding on Jesse while his girlfriend watched. Since you posted about it on Instagram like you were proud of it." My heart started racing, but I forced myself to stay calm. This was just Adrian being jealous and insecure, like always. "I was dancing, Adrian. Dancing. I'm sorry if that threatens your masculinity, but I'm not going to apologize for having a good time." "A good time?" His voice rose for the first time. "Calantha, there's a video. Marcus sent it to me. You're literally telling people they can put their hands on you while you're married, while you're wearing your wedding ring." I felt my face flush, but I wasn't backing down. "So what? It was harmless fun. Everyone was drinking. Everyone was dancing. I didn't do anything wrong." "You don't think letting other men touch you while you're married is wrong?" "Touch me how, Adrian? We were dancing. People touch when they dance. That's how dancing works." I was getting frustrated now. Why couldn't he understand this? "You're making this into something it's not because you're jealous that I have friends and you don't." That hit home. I could see it in his face. Adrian had always been more of a homebody, more comfortable with spreadsheets than social situations. It wasn't my fault that I was more outgoing. "This isn't about jealousy," he said, but his voice was quieter now. "This is about respect. This is about boundaries. This is about the fact that you don't seem to understand why your husband might have a problem with you inviting other men to touch you." "Oh my God, you're being so dramatic," I said, rolling my eyes. "It was Jesse. Jesse, who we've known for 3 years. Jesse, who's practically family. And he has a girlfriend, by the way. Tasha was right there. Nothing inappropriate happened. Tasha looked like she wanted to murder you. Tasha's always been jealous of me. That's her problem, not mine." Adrian stared at me for a long moment, and I could see something shifting in his expression, something that looked almost like disappointment. "Do you hear yourself right now?" he asked. "Do you hear how you're talking about this?" "I hear myself defending my right to have fun without my husband acting like a controlling psychopath." I snapped back. The words hung in the air between us, and I immediately regretted them, but I wasn't going to take them back. I wasn't going to let him make me feel guilty for living my life. "Mummy, Daddy." We both turned to see Issa standing at the bottom of the stairs in her pajamas, her 7-year-old face scrunched with worry. "Why are you yelling?" "We're not yelling, sweetheart," I said quickly, forcing a smile. "Daddy and I were just talking about grown-up stuff." Go back to bed, okay? She looked between us uncertainly. Are you getting divorced like Emma's parents? My heart clenched. No, baby. No, we're not getting divorced. Daddy's just being silly. Go on, I'll be up to tuck you in a minute. After she disappeared back upstairs, Adrian and I stood in silence. Finally, he spoke. I can't do this anymore, Cal. Can't do what? Have a wife who has friends. Have a wife who doesn't sit at home every night. Can't be married to someone who thinks what you did was okay, he said. Can't be married to someone who won't even admit they did anything wrong. I felt panic rising in my chest, but I pushed it down. This was just a fight. A bad fight, but still just a fight. We'd had fights before. We'd get through this. Fine, I said. You want me to admit I did something wrong? Fine. I'm sorry I danced with Jessie. I'm sorry I had fun without you. I'm sorry I didn't sit in the corner all night like a good little wife. Is that what you want to hear? But even as I said it, I could hear how sarcastic I sounded, how insincere, and from the look on Adrian's face, he could hear it too. That's not an apology, he said. That's just you being defensive and trying to make me feel bad for being upset. What do you want from me, Adrian? You want me to grovel? You want me to promise I'll never have fun again? You want me to become some boring housewife who asks permission before she talks to other people? I want you to understand why what you did hurt me, he said. I want you to care that it hurt me. But I was too angry now, too defensive. What hurt you was your own insecurity. That's not my responsibility to fix. Adrian looked at me for a long moment, and I could see something dying in his eyes. Something that had been there for the 8 years we'd been married, something I'd taken for granted. You're right, he said finally. It's not your responsibility to fix my feelings. Just like it's not my responsibility to stay married to someone who doesn't respect me. He turned and walked toward the stairs, leaving me standing alone in the kitchen with the divorce papers and the growing realization that maybe this was more serious than I'd thought. But I pushed that thought away. Adrian was just being dramatic. He'd cool off in a few days, and this would all blow over. It always did. I picked up my phone and texted my sister Sabine. Adrian's being crazy about the club thing. Says he wants a divorce. Can you believe this? Her response came back immediately. He's just jealous. Don't let him make you feel bad for having a life. You did nothing wrong. See? Sabine understood. Sabine got it. I wasn't crazy and I wasn't wrong. Adrian was just being insecure and controlling, and I wasn't going to let him guilt me into thinking otherwise. But as I climbed the stairs to tuck Issa into bed, I couldn't shake the image of his face when he'd looked at me. Like he was seeing someone he didn't recognize, someone he didn't like very much. I pushed the thought away. This would blow over. It had to. The video hit social media on Tuesday morning while I was in my weekly marketing team meeting. My phone started buzzing incessantly, and when I finally checked it during a bathroom break, my heart nearly stopped. There I was, in full HD glory, dancing with Jessie at the club. And okay, maybe it looked a little more intense than I remembered. Maybe the way I was moving against him, the way my hands were on his chest, the way I was laughing and tossing my hair back, maybe it looked worse than it had felt in the moment. But the worst part was the audio. Someone had gotten close enough to record me saying, "Come on, don't be shy. Tonight, everyone gets to touch the birthday girl's friend," followed by my own drunken laughter. I felt sick. That wasn't how it had sounded in my head. That wasn't what I'd meant. My phone was blowing up with notifications. Comments on the video ranged from laughing emojis to much harsher judgments. People from work, from Isa's school, from our neighborhood, they were all seeing this. I immediately called Sabine. "Did you see it?" I asked without preamble. "I saw it," she said, and I could hear the concern in her voice for the first time. "Cal, it looks pretty bad." "It looks bad because people want it to look bad," I said, pacing in the office bathroom. "It was just dancing. People are acting like I was having an orgy in the middle of the club. The audio though, Cal, the thing you said about everyone getting to touch you. I was drunk. I was being silly." God, since when is it illegal to be silly? There was a pause. What does Adrian say about it? Adrian's being ridiculous. He filed for divorce, Sabine. Divorce? Over this? He what? Now she sounded shocked. That seems extreme. Thank you. Finally, someone with sense. He's completely overreacting, and now this video is making it worse. I need to do damage control. I spent my lunch break crafting the perfect social media response. I posted on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. It's sad when people take a fun night out and try to make it into something ugly. Some of us still know how to have a good time without hurting anyone. To the people sharing videos and spreading gossip, you might want to examine why you're so invested in tearing down a happy person. Live your life. Haters gonna hate. The responses were immediate and mixed. Some friends rallied to my defense, posting heart emojis and "you go, girl" comments. But others weren't so supportive. Jenny, whose birthday party it had been, commented, "Cal, maybe this isn't the hill to die on. The video is pretty clear." I deleted her comment immediately and blocked her. If she couldn't support me, I didn't need that negativity in my life. By Wednesday, things had gotten worse. 3 different people at work had made comments about the video. My supervisor, Patricia, pulled me aside and suggested I might want to keep a lower profile for a while. "This is affecting the team dynamic," she said carefully. "People are talking, and it's becoming a distraction." "So I'm being punished at work for having a social life?" I asked. "That seems like discrimination to me." Patricia's expression hardened slightly. "Calantha, I'm trying to help you here. The video shows you behaving inappropriately while identifying yourself as a married woman. It reflects poorly on your judgment, and by extension, on the company." I wanted to argue, but I could see I wasn't going to win this battle. Not right now. So I nodded and promised to be more mindful of my public image. But inside, I was furious. This was so unfair. Men got away with this kind of behavior all the time, and nobody said a word. But let a woman have a little fun, and suddenly she's a pariah. The family brunch on Sunday was a disaster. We always met at Morrison's, this little family restaurant downtown, and usually it was a nice, relaxed affair. But this time, the tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. Adrian barely spoke to me, focusing all his attention on Issa. My mother, Judith, kept giving me these disappointed looks, and Adrian's mother, Miriam, was practically vibrating with disapproval. "So," Miriam said finally, cutting into her pancakes with more force than necessary, "I suppose we should address the elephant in the room." "There's no elephant," I said quickly, "just people making a big deal out of nothing." "Nothing." Miriam's voice rose slightly. "Calantha, I saw the video." "We all saw the video." "It was dancing, Miriam, just dancing." "That wasn't just dancing, and you know it," my mother said quietly. "That was inappropriate, especially for a married woman." I felt ganged up on, defensive. "So what? I'm supposed to sit in a corner at parties? I'm supposed to act like some Victorian housewife because I have a ring on my finger?" "You're supposed to respect your marriage," Miriam said firmly. "You're supposed to respect your husband." "I do respect my marriage. I respect Adrian, but I also respect my right to have friends and have fun." "That man had his hands all over you," Miriam continued. "And you encouraged it. You invited it. How is that respecting your marriage?" I looked around the table for support, but found none. Even Sabine, who had been defending me all week, looked uncomfortable. "You know what?" I said, standing up. "I don't have to sit here and listen to this. I'm not going to be shamed for living my life." "Calantha," Adrian said quietly, "sit down. Please." "No," I said. "I'm done being attacked by people who are supposed to love me. I'm done being made to feel guilty for having friends and having fun. If you all want to sit here and judge me, go ahead. But I don't have to participate." I grabbed my purse and walked out, leaving them all sitting there. Let them talk about me. Let them judge me. I knew I hadn't done anything wrong. But as I sat in my car in the parking lot, I couldn't shake the image of Issa's confused little face as I'd stormed out. She didn't understand what was happening, why everyone was angry, why her parents weren't talking to each other. Maybe I should go back in. Maybe I should try to smooth things over for her sake. But then my phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Saw the video. Your husband deserves better than a cheating whore. The words hit me like a physical blow. I wasn't cheating. I hadn't cheated. I was being crucified for dancing, for having fun, for being social and outgoing. I drove home in tears, but by the time I got there, the tears had turned to anger. This was ridiculous. This was unfair, and I wasn't going to let them make me feel ashamed of who I was. I posted another message on social media. When you're a strong, confident woman who refuses to dim her light, people will try to tear you down. They'll take your joy and try to make it ugly. They'll take your friendships and try to make them dirty. But I won't apologize for being myself. I won't apologize for having fun. And I won't apologize for refusing to live in a box just to make insecure people comfortable. The post got dozens of likes and supportive comments from friends who understood what I was going through. But it also got some harsh criticism, which I promptly deleted and blocked. I wasn't going to let the haters win. I wasn't going to let them destroy my life over one night of harmless fun. But as I went to bed that night, alone because Adrian was sleeping in the guest room, I couldn't help but wonder why everyone was making such a big deal out of nothing. Why couldn't they see that I was the victim here? The call from Issa's teacher came on Thursday morning, while I was trying to focus on a client presentation. Mrs. Rodriguez's voice was gentle but concerned, and my heart immediately started racing. Mrs. Price, I'm calling because I'm a bit worried about Issa. She's been having trouble concentrating this week, and yesterday she broke down crying during reading time. When I asked her what was wrong, she said her parents were fighting and she was scared you were going to get divorced. I closed my eyes and pressed my fingers to my temples. Mrs. Rodriguez, I appreciate your concern, but this is really a private family matter. Of course, and I'm not trying to interfere, but Issa is clearly struggling with whatever is happening at home. She's normally such a bright, happy child, but this week she's been withdrawn and anxious. I think it might be helpful if she could talk to the school counselor. The school counselor. Great. Now my 7-year-old's teacher thought our family was so dysfunctional that professional intervention was needed. That won't be necessary, I said firmly. Issa is fine. All families go through rough patches. We're handling it. I understand, but... Mrs. Rodriguez, I really need to get back to work. Thank you for calling, but we've got this under control. I hung up before she could say anything else, but my hands were shaking. This was getting out of control. The video, the gossip, the family drama, it was all affecting Issa now, and that wasn't fair. She was innocent in all this, but it wasn't my fault. It was Adrian's fault for overreacting. It was everyone else's fault for making a big deal out of nothing. If they had all just minded their own business, Issa would be fine. I tried to focus on work, but my phone kept buzzing with notifications. More comments on the video, more messages from people I barely knew sharing their opinions about my marriage and my choices. Around noon, I decided to drive to the gym where Jesse worked. I needed to talk to him, to get him to help me explain to people that nothing inappropriate had happened between us. He'd been there. He knew the truth. But when I walked into the fitness center, the reception desk girl, some young thing with perfect abs and a judgmental expression, looked at me like I was carrying the plague. Is Jesse available? I asked. He's with a client, she said coolly. I can take a message. I'll wait. I sat in the lobby for 20 minutes, watching through the glass partition, as Jesse worked with some blonde woman who kept laughing at everything he said. Finally, he emerged, and when he saw me, his expression immediately became uncomfortable. Hey, Cal, he said, but he didn't smile. What's up? We need to talk, I said. About what happened at the club, about the video. He glanced around nervously. I don't think that's a good idea. Why not? Jesse, people are making this into something it wasn't. You were there. You know nothing happened. Look, he said, lowering his voice. Tasha is really upset about this whole thing. She thinks maybe we got a little too close that night. Too close? I felt my voice rising. We were dancing. We're friends. We've been friends for years. I know, but the video... It looks pretty intense, Cal. And the things you said... I was drunk. I was being silly. You know me, Jesse. You know I didn't mean anything by it. He ran his hand through his hair, looking everywhere but at me. Maybe that's the problem. Maybe we both had too much to drink and things got out of hand. I stared at him in disbelief. So you're abandoning me too? You're going to let everyone think something happened when you know it didn't? Nothing did happen, he said quickly. But maybe we should keep some distance for a while. Until this all blows over. Distance? I felt like he'd slapped me. Jesse, you're supposed to be my friend. I am your friend. That's why I'm telling you this. Tasha's talking about breaking up with me over this. My boss saw the video and asked me about it. This is affecting my life too, Cal. So you're just going to throw me under the bus to save yourself? I'm not throwing you under the bus, I need some space. We both do. I wanted to argue more, but I could see it was pointless. Jesse had made up his mind. He was choosing his girlfriend and his reputation over our friendship. Fine, I said. But when this all dies down, when people realize they were wrong about me, don't come crawling back expecting things to go back to normal. I stormed out of the gym, my face burning with humiliation and anger. Another friend lost. Another person who was supposed to care about me, choosing to believe the worst instead of standing by me. When I got home that evening, Adrian was in the kitchen making dinner for Issa. He'd been doing that a lot lately, taking over the household responsibilities like he didn't trust me to handle them anymore. We need to talk, I said. Not in front of Issa, he replied without looking at me. Then let's talk after she goes to bed. He nodded, but I could see the reluctance in his posture. He didn't want to talk to me. He didn't want to work this out. He'd already made up his mind, just like everyone else. After Issa was tucked in and reading in her room, we sat across from each other at the kitchen table like strangers. Mrs. Rodriguez called me today, I said. About Issa. She's upset about us fighting. I know, she called me too. This has to stop, Adrian. Whatever problems you and I are having, we can't let them affect our daughter. I agree, he said. That's why I think it's best if I move out for a while. The words hit me like a physical blow. Move out? Adrian, you can't be serious. I've already talked to a lawyer, Cal. I've started looking at apartments. A lawyer? My voice came out as a whisper. You've talked to a lawyer. I had to. You won't even admit you did anything wrong. You won't go to counseling. You won't take any responsibility for what happened. What choice do I have? You have the choice to stop being so dramatic about this. You have the choice to forgive your wife for one night of harmless fun. Harmless? His voice rose for the first time in days. Calantha, do you have any idea what it was like for me to see that video? To watch my wife telling other men they could touch her? To see you grinding on another man while wearing my ring? It was dancing. It was humiliating. It was disrespectful. And the worst part is that you don't even care how it made me feel. I felt tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. Of course I care how you feel. But you're asking me to apologize for something I didn't do wrong. I'm asking you to apologize for hurting me. I'm asking you to show some remorse for embarrassing our family. I'm asking you to act like you give a damn about our marriage. I do give a damn about our marriage. That's why I can't understand why you're willing to throw it all away over this. Adrian stared at me for a long moment, and I could see the exhaustion in his eyes. The defeat. I'm not throwing it away, he said quietly. You already did that. I'm just acknowledging it. He stood up and walked toward the stairs, leaving me sitting alone at the kitchen table again. But this time, I could hear him moving around upstairs, opening drawers, the sound of a suitcase being pulled from the closet. He was really leaving. This was really happening. I pulled out my phone and texted Sabine. He's packing. He's really leaving me over this. I can't believe this is happening. But for the first time all week, Sabine didn't respond immediately. And when she finally did, hours later, her message was shorter than usual. Maybe you should try talking to someone, a counselor or something. Even Sabine was starting to doubt me. Even my own sister was starting to think maybe I was the problem. But I wasn't the problem. I was the victim here. I was the one being abandoned by everyone who was supposed to love me. I was the one being punished for having a personality, for being social, for refusing to live my life in a box. As I listened to Adrian packing upstairs, I felt more alone than I ever had in my life. But I also felt something else: determination. I wasn't going to let them destroy me. I wasn't going to let them make me feel ashamed of who I was. And I wasn't going to let Adrian walk away from our marriage without a fight. Tomorrow, I would start fighting back. Miriam called me Friday morning and asked if I could meet her for coffee. Her voice was careful, controlled, but I could hear the underlying tension. I almost said no. I wasn't in the mood for another lecture about my behavior, but something in her tone made me reconsider. Maybe she wanted to help. Maybe she'd talked some sense into Adrian. Maybe this was my chance to fix things. We met at Cornerstone Coffee downtown, a little place with mismatched furniture and local art on the walls. Miriam was already there when I arrived, sitting at a corner table with her hands wrapped around a large mug. She looked older than usual, tired in a way that made me feel a pang of guilt. "Thank you for coming," she said as I sat down. "Of course. You sounded like it was important." She nodded and pulled out her phone, setting it on the table between us. "I wanted to talk to you about this whole situation, about what's happening with you and Adrian." I felt myself getting defensive already. "Miriam, if you called me here to lecture me about the video—" "I called you here because I love you," she interrupted. "Because you've been part of our family for 8 years, and I don't want to see you destroy your life over this." Her words caught me off guard. I'd expected anger, judgment, disappointment. But there was genuine pain in her voice, genuine concern. "I'm not destroying my life," I said quietly. "Everyone else is destroying it for me." "Calantha, I want you to watch something." She picked up her phone and tapped the screen. The video started playing, that damn video that was ruining everything. But this time, I was forced to really look at it, to see what everyone else was seeing. And God, it was worse than I remembered. The way I was moving, the way I was touching Jessie, the way I was laughing and encouraging other people to join in. The audio was crystal clear. "Come on, don't be shy. Tonight everyone gets to touch the birthday girl's friend." But it wasn't just what I was doing. It was how I looked doing it. Confident, flirtatious, like I was performing for an audience. Like I was enjoying the attention, the power of being desired by multiple men while my husband wasn't there to see it. "Turn it off," I said, looking away. "Do you see what I see?" Miriam asked gently. "Do you understand why Adrian is so hurt?" "I was drunk," I said weakly. "I was just having fun." "You were married," she replied. "You had a ring on your finger and a husband at home and a daughter sleeping in her bed. And you were inviting strange men to put their hands on you." I felt tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. "It wasn't like that. It wasn't sexual. It was just dancing." "Calantha, look at me." I met her eyes reluctantly. If Adrian had done this, if he'd gone to a club and told women they could touch him, if he'd spent the night grinding on some other woman while you were at home, how would you feel? The question hit me like a physical blow because I knew the answer immediately. I would have been devastated. I would have been furious. I would have felt betrayed and humiliated and— "That's different," I said, but my voice sounded weak even to me. "How is it different?" Because it just is. Men and women are different. The dynamic is different." "The dynamic is different," she agreed, "because what you did was worse. You weren't just receiving attention. You were actively soliciting it. You were encouraging it. You were performing." I wanted to argue, but the words wouldn't come, because deep down, in a part of myself I'd been trying to ignore, I knew she was right. I made a mistake, I whispered. But it was one night, one stupid night. Does that really justify destroying our family? That depends, Miriam said. Are you willing to admit it was a mistake? Are you willing to take responsibility for how you've hurt my son? I looked down at my hands, at the wedding ring I was still wearing. I've tried to apologize, but he won't listen. Have you? Have you really apologized? Or have you just made excuses and blamed everyone else for overreacting? The question stung because it was accurate. Every time I'd tried to talk to Adrian, I'd ended up defending myself instead of acknowledging his pain. I don't know how to fix this, I admitted. Start by telling the truth, Miriam said. Stop making excuses. Stop blaming other people. Stop pretending you don't understand why everyone is so upset. I nodded, feeling something crack open inside my chest. Maybe she was right. Maybe I had been making excuses. Maybe I had been so focused on defending myself that I'd lost sight of what really mattered. Will you help me? I asked. Will you talk to Adrian? Tell him I want to make this right. Miriam's expression softened slightly. I'll try. But Calantha, you have to understand, the trust is broken. It's going to take time to rebuild it, if it can be rebuilt at all. But there's still hope. She was quiet for a long moment. There's always hope, but only if you're willing to do the work, real work, not just saying you're sorry, but actually changing. I felt a surge of relief. This was what I'd been waiting for. Someone to tell me there was still a way to fix this. Someone to give me a roadmap back to my life. I'll do whatever it takes, I promised. But as we were getting ready to leave, Miriam's phone buzzed with a text. She glanced at it, and her expression changed completely. What is it? I asked. She showed me the screen. It was a message from Sabine. I can't keep covering for her anymore. She's been saying terrible things about Adrian to anyone who will listen. I have screenshots if you need them. My blood turned to ice. Sabine sent you that? Apparently she's been sending me messages all week, Miriam said, scrolling through her phone. Messages you sent her about Adrian, about how he's controlling and jealous and insecure. She turned the screen toward me, and I saw my own words reflected back at me. Adrian's being such a psycho about this. He's always been jealous of my friendships. I think he gets off on trying to control me. And he's probably secretly relieved to have an excuse to divorce me. He never liked that I was more social than him. And I swear he's enjoying playing the victim. He's milking this for all the sympathy he can get. I didn't mean those things, I said desperately. I was just venting. I was upset and hurt and you were trashing my son to anyone who would listen, Miriam said, her voice cold again. You were making him out to be the villain while you played the victim. Miriam, please. Those were private messages. I was just blowing off steam. Private messages that you sent to someone who clearly thinks you're in the wrong, she said. Private messages that show exactly how you really feel about your husband. She stood up and gathered her purse. I thought maybe there was hope for you two. I thought maybe you were just confused and defensive, but still capable of taking responsibility for your actions. I was wrong. Miriam, wait. No, Calantha. I'm done. Adrian is done. We're all done. She walked away, leaving me sitting alone in the coffee shop with the devastating realization that I'd lost my last ally, that my own sister had betrayed me, that even the people who were supposed to love me unconditionally had given up on me. But it wasn't my fault. It wasn't fair. Those messages to Sabine, they were taken out of context. They were just me processing my feelings, trying to make sense of why everyone was treating me so badly. I wasn't the villain here. I was still the victim. Wasn't I? The lawyer's office was nothing like what I'd expected. I'd imagined something intimidating and formal, all dark wood and leather-bound books. Instead, it was modern and sterile, with glass tables and abstract art that probably cost more than my car. Adrian was already there when I arrived, sitting across from a woman in her 50s, with silver hair and sharp eyes. She introduced herself as Margaret Chen, and her handshake was firm enough to crack bones. "Mrs. Price, thank you for coming. I'm sure this is difficult for everyone involved." I took the seat across from them, trying to project confidence I didn't feel. "I'm hoping we can resolve this without getting the courts involved. This is really just a misunderstanding that got blown out of proportion." Margaret exchanged a look with Adrian. "Mrs. Price, I think it's important that you understand the situation you're in. Your husband has asked me to prepare divorce papers, and frankly, he has substantial grounds." "Grounds?" I laughed, but it sounded forced even to me. "What grounds? I danced with someone at a party. That's not grounds for divorce." "Actually, it is," Margaret said calmly. "In this state, inappropriate conduct that damages the marital relationship is absolutely grounds for divorce. But that's not all we're dealing with here." She opened a thick folder and spread several documents across the table. "Your husband has been documenting your behavior for the past 2 weeks. Social media posts, text messages, witness statements. It paints a very clear picture." I looked at the papers spread before me and felt my stomach drop. Screenshots of my Facebook posts, my Instagram stories, my tweets, printouts of text conversations with Sabine where I'd called Adrian controlling and jealous, photos from the club that I'd forgotten were taken. "This is private communication," I said. "You can't use this." "Actually, we can," Margaret replied, "especially the social media posts, which were public, and the text messages were provided voluntarily by your sister." "Sabine gave you these?" "She contacted me directly," Adrian said quietly. "She said she couldn't watch you destroy yourself anymore." I felt like I'd been punched in the stomach. My own sister, my own flesh and blood had turned against me. "But that's not the worst part," Margaret continued. She pulled out another document. "We also have testimony from several witnesses about your behavior that night, including the club's security footage." "Security footage?" "The club keeps cameras on the dance floor for liability purposes. The footage shows you engaging in inappropriate physical contact with multiple men throughout the evening. It shows you encouraging others to touch you. And it shows you appearing to exchange contact information with at least 2 individuals." That last part wasn't true. I hadn't exchanged numbers with anyone. But as I opened my mouth to protest, I realized it didn't matter what was true. What mattered was what it looked like. "This is harassment," I said. "You're trying to intimidate me." "Mrs. Price," Margaret said, her voice gentle but firm, "I'm trying to help you understand the reality of your situation. If this goes to court, all of this becomes public record. The videos, the messages, the witness statements, it all gets entered into evidence." "And there's more," Adrian said quietly. "Tell her about the custody evaluation." My blood turned to ice. "Custody evaluation?" "Given the circumstances, and given that your daughter's teacher has expressed concerns about her emotional state, the court may order a custody evaluation to determine what arrangement would be in Issa's best interests." "You can't take my daughter away from me," I said, my voice rising. "I'm a good mother. I've never done anything to hurt Issa." "No one's trying to take her away," Adrian said, "but your behavior has been affecting her. She's having nightmares, Cal. She's acting out at school. Her teacher thinks she needs counseling." I felt tears starting to form, but I blinked them back. This couldn't be happening. This couldn't be real. "What do you want from me?" I asked. Margaret slid a document across the table. "This is a separation agreement. It outlines the terms for a temporary separation while you both decide how you want to proceed." I picked up the papers with shaking hands. Adrian would get the house. I would move into an apartment. We would share custody of Issa, but she would live primarily with him during the school year. I would get her on weekends and holidays. "This is ridiculous," I said. "You're treating me like I'm some kind of criminal, like I'm unfit to be around my own daughter." "You're not unfit," Adrian said, "but you're not stable right now. You're not taking responsibility for your actions. You're not showing any remorse for how your behavior has affected our family." I've tried to apologize. No, you haven't, he said firmly. You've made excuses. You've blamed everyone else. You've played the victim, but you've never once said you were sorry for hurting me. I looked at him across the table, this man I'd been married to for 8 years, and I could see that he was done. There was no anger in his eyes anymore, no hurt, just a kind of sad resignation that was somehow worse than any emotion. If I sign this, I said, what happens then? Then we try to work things out, Margaret said. You go to counseling. You take some time to reflect on what you want your life to look like. And maybe, if you can show that you're willing to change, you and your husband can rebuild your relationship. And if I don't sign it, then we file for divorce immediately, and all of this becomes public. The custody battle becomes contentious. Your daughter gets dragged through a court process that could take months or even years to resolve. I looked down at the papers, at the legal language that would formalize the destruction of my life. This wasn't fair. This wasn't what I'd wanted. I'd just been trying to have fun, trying to be social, trying to live my life. But as I sat there in that sterile office, looking at the evidence of my own words and actions spread across the table, I began to understand something that I'd been refusing to see. This wasn't about one night at a club. This wasn't about dancing or having fun or being social. This was about respect. This was about boundaries. This was about the fact that I'd been so focused on my right to do what I wanted that I'd completely ignored my responsibility to the people who loved me. I'd hurt Adrian. I'd embarrassed our family. I'd confused and scared our daughter. And instead of acknowledging that pain, instead of taking responsibility for my part in it, I'd made everything worse by playing the victim and blaming everyone else. I need a pen, I said quietly. Margaret handed me one, and I signed my name at the bottom of the separation agreement. Each signature felt like a small death, like I was signing away pieces of the life I'd built. But maybe that life had been built on a foundation that was already cracking. Maybe this was what it looked like when the consequences of your choices finally caught up with you. As we prepared to leave, Adrian looked at me one last time. I did love you, Cal, he said. I want you to know that. Whatever happens next, I did love you. The past tense hit me like a physical blow. Not I love you, not I still love you. I did love you. As if that love was already gone, as if it had died somewhere between that night at the club and this moment in the lawyer's office. I walked out of that building knowing that my life as I'd known it was over. But for the first time in weeks, I also felt something that might have been the beginning of clarity. Maybe it was time to stop fighting everyone else and start fighting the real enemy, the part of myself that had created this mess in the first place. 3 months later, I found myself back in Margaret Chen's office, but this time, the dynamic was completely different. I'd spent the summer in a small apartment across town, seeing Issa every other weekend and Wednesday evenings. I'd gone to counseling, like the separation agreement required. I'd stayed off social media. I'd tried, really tried, to understand how I'd gotten to this point, but it wasn't enough. I signed the divorce papers knowing I'd finally become exactly what Adrian and Issa needed protecting from, the selfish, attention-hungry wife who refused to admit she was wrong until it cost her everything. Months later, after therapy and a lot of painful honesty, my 7-year-old looked at me and said she was proud of me for learning how to say sorry, and I realized this wasn't the end of my story, just the end of the chapter where I was the villain.